Hello and welcome to my first impression video for the Cre8audio West Pest. So first, let me explain a little bit about what this is and why I'm doing this video. Well, this synth is made by Cre8audio, designed in collaboration with Pittsburgh Modular. It is one of a pair of synthesizers. One of them is called the East Beast, a traditional East Coast subtractive synth. This is called the West Pest, a more West Coast style synthesizer. The reason that I'm doing this video now is because firstly, I pre-ordered this some time ago and basically forgot about it, and it just arrived this week. And secondly, I found there haven't really been that many videos other than sort of official review videos. So I thought I'd give you my first impressions here. What I'm going to do then is spend 20 minutes with this device. So what you'll be seeing is basically my first 20 minutes. I did turn it on and I did press some buttons on it to check it actually made sound, but I haven't really used it. I did look at the manual, and this little quick start guide comes in the box along with these patch cables and the device itself. I'm going to talk through the device, and I'm going to try and make some standard plucky sounds. I'm going to try and do something drone-ish and maybe some atonal plucky sounds, and then maybe experiment with the Patchbay a little bit and talk about where I might use this. So, quick overview of the panel, oscillator section with a fine tune, waveform selection and FM, wave contour, which looks like a wave folder, and then resonance. Now this dynamics control is something like a low pass gate, but it apparently isn't. You seem to be able to control the sustain level, which is not normal for a low pass gate, and you can set the release length, which again is not that normal for a low pass gate. We have an LFO. You can see a range control here. So these lights and these buttons, where they have white or yellow underneath them, you can press the white button and then the white text is what happens, and you can press the yellow button and then the yellow text is what happens. So you have some controls down here. We have that one LFO, we have this dynamics controller, we have this which functions as a keyboard with an octave shift button. We have a sequencer and an arpeggiator, so maybe that'll be something to use. So let's turn on sequencer. So I think when I was messing around when I turned it on, I think I enabled random order for the steps. So I disabled that. Okay, so let's experiment with the controls. So as you'd expect, that's just a fine tune for the oscillator. It's an analog oscillator. So that FM is not from a pitch tracking oscillator. It's from the LFO. So let's try it at the high rate. Okay, so I've also already concluded then that this FM is not going to be particularly useful when you're wanting to make harmonious pitched sounds, because the LFO doesn't track pitch. So that means the FM is against a fixed pitch, which is not going to have the fixed harmonic relations between the sound and the source you're modulating from. So I think this is really going to work when you're doing atonal sounds. Let's try the wave folder. Okay, so this is a sine wave, so we're definitely really getting a lot of harmonics out of that. Let's try the other waveforms. So there's a triangle. So that gets pretty buzzy, pretty rough textured, quite interesting. Saw wave. Okay, that's quite nice. I like the sort of almost plucked string sound that it has. Saw and triangle. Sorry, sine and triangle, sine and saw. Triangle and saw. So it seems to be noise, but it seems to be pitched. When you wavefold it enough, it loses that pitch. Okay, so I don't know exactly how that is generated, but let's stick to the sine for now. That's interesting. So fold mod modulates the wave folder from the LFO, but it sounds like if you modulate the wave folding negatively, it kind of cuts the sound out. So you can hear with the LFO is high and it's low, you almost get no sound. If I turn up the mod, then it almost disappears. So I guess you could use that to some interesting effect. Next thing we have is this resonance control. Let's move to a waveform that has some more harmonics. So, triangle. Yeah, so now we can hear the sort of filter-like movement of the dynamics controller. The resonance is applying to that. So the release goes quite long, but surprisingly, the shortest release is not that short. Okay, so this is modulating the release amount by the LFO. Okay, your typical glide portamento. So in reading the manual, I read that this multi-output here is a multi-function generator, which can generate several different types of outputs labeled here. So at the moment that says MIDI, so I think that's a MIDI CC, that's an LFO, that's a random source, and that's an envelope. So one of the things I noted here was I liked what the wave folder did to the saw wave. So what I'm going to try and do is use the function generator's envelope output to the fold mod. So I think the control of the multi is setting the length of the envelope. So we might be interested to have the least length vary. So maybe I'll So I've set the sequencer in random mode. Okay. So it seems like I can set the gate length of the sequencer using this gate control here. So that's swing. Random here. I see. So I think what random here means is randomly move between the waveforms with every step. And then if I press random again, it goes back to the normal mode. So let's try and adjust the EQ on this a bit. So I can already hear that it would be nice to have a filter after this, a filter independent of the dynamics controller. So I'm already getting the feeling that this will be quite interesting for producing relatively bright, relatively strong, punchy sounds, or interesting variations and plucks. But it might be a little bit bold in a lot of contexts. So I think this will probably do well as something that you sample and then you make sounds out of it. Let me try and experiment getting into some less tonal territory. So let's try and bring LFO into the high rate. So you end up with a very snappy sound from the envelope moving quite quickly, which is good. Let's try some of the other waveforms. So that noise actually sounds pretty good here. Okay, interesting sort of snare sound that we can get to there. And because of the pitch nature of the noise, using FM and the LFO, we can get some timbral changes there. Okay, so let's exit the sequencer. And I think the last thing that I'd like to try is to see how this would work for a drone. So let's go to, yeah, maybe that pair. And I can hold. Okay, so that's interesting. Oh, it goes pretty loud. That's the sequence on. So it doesn't seem like I can use the hold along with the sequence. If I turn this way up. I'm interested to know if I can effectively clock the sequencer. Okay, so now I'm using the LFO to clock the sequencer. Yes, I could also try and use that to clock the gate. Okay, that didn't work as I expected it to. Ignore that. Let's go back to hold. Ah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So given that the sustain sets the level here, if you've got a drone, this acts as a filter cutoff. So for unfortunately, this LFO rate is very, very sensitive around there. Okay, so let's Okay, that was quite an unusual one. So in the short time I've had looking at the Patchbay, I can see that there is some capacity to, for example, use the dynamics controller on its own, to use the oscillator on its own, to use the wave folder on its own. The dynamics out, I guess, comes out the output. So you can use this as a set of distinct modules, and I think perhaps that is where this will be best utilized, because my impression is that if you wanted to use it for drone, with an effect, you could probably do something decent with this, but it would become tremendously increased in capability with some additional modules added. Maybe a second one of these, maybe an East Beast added to it, or maybe placing it in a modular case, because I could imagine something like this with another couple of oscillators, maybe a filter, a VCA, a couple of LPGs, and a mixer. And I think you could have yourself a quite interesting West Coast synth. Ordinarily, this type of semi-modular synth I wouldn't really recommend putting in a Eurorack case, because it comes pre-powered, it comes ready to go. But if you wanted to use it just like a complex oscillator, or just like a simple sequencer, then maybe it's not too bad if you were in a budget case, but it's still 40 HP, pretty sizable, so who knows exactly what I'm going to do with this. I think probably I'll experiment a little more using it to drone. I'll experiment a little more making some atonal percussion. Maybe I'll be sampling that, or maybe I'll be using that directly. I'll try and dig a little bit deeper, but for now my impression is, considering the relatively low price, it's a decent box, it sounds pretty good. It's reasonably flexible for those sort of plucky sounds. I wish the release went shorter, I wish the Patchbay was a little more extensive, but other than that, I'd say it seems like a pretty interesting proposition. So in any case, this is my first 20-ish minutes with the Cre8audio West Pest. I'd like to say thanks for watching the video. I'd like to say I hope that you enjoyed watching this one and will join me for some more videos, but in any case, most importantly, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.